Welcome to the Divine Style Podcast with Gerlinda, Stella, personal stylist and self-love coach, and Alison, Maiden, psychic medium, spiritual healer and metaphysical teacher. Each episode you'll experience spiritual lessons to cultivate self-love and self-expression so you can become the best version of you.
Hi, I'm Gerlinda.
And I'm Alison.
Today we are talking about hauntings, so ghosts and other entities and all the spooky stuff. Ooh, I'm really looking forward to this episode because I'm hoping you're going to be able to tell me some ghost stories.
Of course. I have so many.
I guess the first thing is, what is a ghost?
A ghost is just a person who has a body. He's out of body. They don't know that they're past half the time, or if they do, then they are stuck here because they don't want to move over into spirit world for numerous reasons. Sometimes that can be because they're frightened too. Maybe they've had a religious upbringing where they think because they've done something wrong, if they pass over, they'll be punished, which is not the case, by the way. And sometimes they've just been really nasty people. And so they prefer just to sort of stick around and make people's lives a misery. So there's varying different levels of hauntings and ghosts.
When we've spoken about spirits in our previous episode, we spoke about the difference between spirits and ghosts and how spirits are often our loved ones who have passed over. Mm-hmm. Can our loved ones also be ghosts then and be stuck here?
Yeah, they can. Many times during readings with people, I have what we call ascended or sent someone over into spirit world that was stuck. And it's so interesting because that person will always say to me, I just knew there was something wrong. I just felt it. That person was either calling out to help for me or somehow I couldn't contact them or I couldn't see them anymore, because these people are quite often psychic themselves. They have vision and they have feelings, and I just couldn't get to that person. So I think you can get an idea that might be the case. And I just want to reassure people too. A lot of people think that suicides are stuck and they will remain stuck. That's not true. Okay, that is not true. It doesn't always happen that someone who is disturbed enough to take their life will end up in the wrong place. And so please don't think that. However, if it does happen, then we can definitely help them and definitely get them to where they need to be. So I have to really reassure people. And of course, we have to mention that if anyone has got someone in their life that has those tendencies or if they're feeling worried, please reach out to your local professional, your GP, or call Beyond Blue or Lifeline.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And these are, when there has been a tragic death for somebody, whether that might be suicide or maybe even like a horrific car accident, or when people are taken really quickly, does that have an impact on them maybe staying here because they were sort of shocked out of?
Absolutely, it can. Yeah, not always, but it can. And when a passing is deliberate, they don't always have the help on the other side. Mainly because of timing sometimes as well. If someone just decides to do it in that split second, it can be that. It can be that they are really determined in their own mind that they don't want to pass into spirit world, and so they don't. They may not believe that there's an afterlife. They may believe in nothing, and so therefore they're going to be stuck on the astral plane where they'll find lots of things, not nothing. But it's really interesting, and the spirit rescues that I've done have been so many and so vast and so different. 9 times out of 10, they are people who are stuck in the same loop of the passing of what happened to them. So they'll be going around and around in that same loop.
Gosh, I just got goosebumps. That reminds me of that show Lucifer on Netflix.
Yes.
Like with, oh my gosh, that is really freaky. That's what they say hell is, just going over and over again.
Well, it's purgatory. It's what the Christians call purgatory. And so I actually believe that there's various different bubbles of reality that people create in the astral plane, and that they have within this bubble of reality, they have the guilt or the problem or how they passed, and they're just going through it over and over again. I'll tell you a story at this point, which is really interesting.
A ghost story.
This is a ghost story. So I went to Hawaii several years ago, and I had a holiday. I know, right?
Yay!
That
you
rare
having
thing.
a holiday. Yeah.
For 2 weeks I was going to say, no spirit contact at all. I'm just going to be a muggle for 2 weeks. I'm not having any contact whatsoever. So I'm switched off. See you later. Tell you what, that was really weird for a while because like no voices, no nothing. It was just
so
I was a normal person for ages. Yeah,
you can switch it off.
Well, I didn't think I could, but they did. They were actually listening to me, and I had a rest for about a week. Didn't last for 2 weeks. Anyway, so it was quite important though. So we went to a place in Hawaii that had the Pearl Harbor Memorial.
Oh wow.
And it was such an amazing experience to go there just purely on visual. You know, it was incredible. The memorial was amazing. They spent millions, you know, true American style. They spent millions on this place and it looked beautiful. And it was a terrific education of what actually happened and everything like that. But I was fine until I got through the front gates to this memorial. And then I had this voice virtually out of nowhere because I wasn't expecting it, you see, say, I'm Frank and I need your help. My boys need your help. And he kept saying, I'm Frank and I need your help. And I said, okay. So I sat down on the lawn quietly and said, what do you want me to do? They're trapped and you need to help them. So I didn't expect what I saw. I got on
standing here, head to toe goosebumps.
I got on the little boat. We went across to the Arizona. Now, the Arizona was one of the warships that was hit that day in Pearl Harbor. And there were a number of sailors under the deck asleep when it happened, and they were all ranging from. And don't forget, it was World War II, so they were 17 years old to about. I think the eldest was about 23. So they're all very young men. And I just felt extremely overwhelmed. I had fire coming up around me. My skin was on fire. I was being led through what was happening to them. And it was horrendous. The noise was horrendous. The fear was horrendous. And I just had this terrible, overwhelming feeling. And so I'm on the deck of this ship with the tour group and I'm bawling my eyes out. And I just had to take myself to the back where there was a little sitting area, and I just said to my friend, look, you go ahead. I can't go on this. I have to deal with this. So I sat there, and for the whole half an hour that they were on the tour, I was sending over the souls, and I opened the portal and I sent them over.
Oh my gosh, how many do you think there were?
Oh God, there would have been at least 80, maybe 100. I'm not too sure, but there was a lot. So it took me a long time to convince them all to go. I just caught up at the end of it all. I just caught up with the group in time to see the memorial, and the memorial is actually on the wall in this ship. So they've built this wall and they've got all the names of the people that passed. And my friend said, look, pointed up the top and said, have a look up there. And the sergeant in charge was S.L. Franks.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah. So he was there. He'd stuck around and because of his boys, but he was kind of, I suppose, needing help to get them to go across because they were living this terrible day over and over. And that was 70 years. It was their 70th anniversary.
How sad and how amazing that he knew that you would be able to help.
Yes, because people that are mediums, their light shines very bright to souls that are out of body. So it's like if you're looking, let's take Cairns Central as an example. If you're looking down a mall of Cairns Central and you've got all these people walking, they will see the bright lights in that crowd and they'll be attracted to those bright lights, thinking that they can give them some form of help. That's why you take people home with you.
Oh gosh, yes, I know that.
You take people home with you all the time. We're always clearing.
I know.
Your house.
I realized that the other day because now I can talk to them. Like I know that's what I'm doing. I was like, damn it, there was a little girl followed me home from Innisfail.
Yes,
the other day.
Yeah.
So yes, I do bring them home unknowingly, but now I'm a bit more conscious of it. So then I have conversations saying, yes, it's time to go.
Exactly. And then when you know what you're doing, you can open the door and they go through quite happily because they want to. At times when they won't go through and we have to give them a little shove, I've actually found it's easier to bring through family members that are already in spirit world. So I ask guides on the other side to bring forward their family members and they can see them and then they go through the door without any problems.
Oh my gosh, this is giving me more goosebumps. So when I said in a previous episode that I've seen faces and they've changed. And so I saw this little girl and then I saw this gentleman's face and I said, is that your dad? And now that makes sense that because I called Archangel Michael in to help and now that makes sense that, yes, he came in to take her home.
Yeah, exactly. And of course you would. if that's the person that you're looking for. Maybe that's why you're still stuck here. Maybe you were looking for someone. I moved into a house in a little town in Strathalbyn. It is a town in Adelaide Hills, and it's a beautiful old, I think it's German town. Yeah. It's amazing. It's one of the first settlements in South Australia, and I lived there for 10 years. And we were living in the oldest house, of course.
Of course.
We had to pick the oldest
haunted.
house. It used to belong to the blacksmith, so it was 2-story, and it had where the kitchen now was used to be where the horses used to come in and all that sort of thing. But I'm always attracted to these houses that need healing, and it's just part of the deal for me, So anyway, we were in this house, and my kids were all little at this stage, but they're all mediums, so they can all hear, but they're all varying different degrees of wanting to be.
Oh, right. Okay. So they're like, oh, please, no, not another ghost, Mum.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Not another haunted house.
The little one comes up and he says to me, Mum, there's a man in my room. And I said, okay, love, let's go and have a chat with him. So he told me his name was George, and he told me that he was looking for his wife, Marietta. And he said that he had just gone out to work and he'd come back, and Marietta couldn't see him and she wouldn't talk to him, and he didn't know why.
Whoa.
He died at work, so his spirit came back to the house, and of course Marietta was not, none the wiser, and so he'd spent that would have been at least 100 years at that house looking for Marietta. So we just opened up the door and Marietta came through and he went. So he was happy with that, So I think that we've just got to realise that they're people. They sometimes need your help. They're not there to terrify you or to make you feel bad. Other things do that.
Or we'll get to that very soon.
Other things do that. But no, ghosts are usually just there to get your attention, and they are usually the ones that will knock things over. Or, we had one in good ones in Adelaide, some very good hauntings in Adelaide, and Sydney. Sydney are great for hauntings too. But this one lass, and I felt so sorry for her. I had a frantic call one night from her mother, actually, and she said, my daughter's 23. She's just bought her own flat. She's moved out of house. She's so thrilled. She's in this flat. The first night, she's lying on her bed asleep, and she wakes up freezing cold, middle of winter, Adelaide, freezing cold. And someone had gently folded her quilt into 4 and laid it on her legs.
Oh, no. Oh.
So we have a poltergeist. People that can do that are much stronger than normal ghosts. So being able to, physically being able to move things.
Reminds me of the movie Ghost.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there was a lot of activity in that place. And she then, the second night, all the cushions from the lounge were in the hallway.
No.
So there was stuff like this. The poor girl, she left the flat and went home to her mum in tears, and she said, I'm not going back in there, obviously. So the interesting thing is when we went in there, and I was looking up, and I heard the man laughing as I walked through the door, and then I heard him rustle a few things in the kitchen like, hey, I'm going to scare the hell out of you. Well, yeah, good luck with that, mate.
Cheeky. Okay.
And then I heard a shotgun blast.
Oh, so he was actually trying to frighten you.
He was showing me what happened to him.
Oh, my gosh.
He'd actually committed suicide.
Oh.
And do you know what? This is really going to freak you out. After I had made contact with him and discovered why he was still there, a massive yellow stain, which looked like a spray of blood, appeared on the ceiling and the wall, and it had just seeped through the new paintwork that had been done.
Incredible. So
Yeah.
you mean physically it
Physically,
was there?
it happened, and it looked like a big spray of blood, as you would if you'd seen it in a crime scene or whatever. Anyway, so we moved him across, and he was happy to go. But then the mum got on the warpath, and then went to the agent and said, "Why didn't you tell me that someone had committed suicide in this flat?" And she said, so she knew about it.
Incredible.
And she didn't say anything. So, any of the real estate agents out there who are listening, if you need help, give us a call.
Yeah. That is a very good point. And so now so obviously that's an extreme case of a haunting.
Yeah, that's more of a poltergeist activity.
How would someone else know that their house is maybe haunted? I know I was talking to someone the other day and they said that they sometimes see shadows out of the corner of their eye.
Yes. Well, yeah, look, I mean, oh God, there's so many different types of hauntings. This is where we get a bit confused. So We mentioned before elementals. Elementals are from the second dimension. They're not ghosts and they're not demonic. They are from what I call the fairy realm, if you like. So they are different to us. They're not usually malevolent. They are naughty. They like to get attention and they love playing around with humans.
Like a 2-year-old having a tantrum.
Sometimes, yes.
Okay.
And so dark shadows aren't good.
Oh.
Dark shadows aren't good. So dark shadows can sometimes be things that we call shapeshifters, and they are from that dimension. They are not evil, but they do like to scare people and they do like to create that negative energy. And because of that, it can actually bring in demonic energies. So they can have an opening, if you like, for demonics to come in on these things. So it's not a good idea.
So could you have the elementals from the second dimension?
Yes.
Can you have just them, or would ghosts come in first? And
yeah. We can have just elementals. In fact, there's a house that we have cleared, I don't know how many times now. Poor thing. I've actually said to the beautiful lady living there she needs to move because she is a medium, a very powerful medium, and she's attracting these things. And, of course, she's on the right spot. So we talk about ley lines later, but she's on the right spot for bringing in all of these multidimensional energies. And so she has all sorts in her house. Her garden is full of fairies, elementals, sprites, spirits, and you can actually see things moving in her garden. She sees them all the time.
Wow, but she has no ghosts.
She had a lot of ghosts in her house. But it's just like this massive mix-up of creatures, if you like, because of the space. And some houses are like that. They just attract all these different things. Other houses, you'll just have a couple of different portals that'll be open to maybe lower realms, and so you'll get ghosts coming in there from the fourth, and they'll just be ghosts, But it also depends on the people living there. That's my point, is that, if you're going to attract them all the time, then the house isn't haunted, you are.
So no matter where you go,
you'll pull them in.
Right, no matter what house you move into or where you move, they'll be there with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bit spooky in itself.
Yeah.
So how would someone know that there was a ghost in the house?
Well, ghosts will give you feelings of despair. Sometimes they'll, want to communicate with you, so they'll try and tell you what happened to them. And when they're doing that, they'll make you feel the way they felt. So, for instance, you could be quite a happy person and you would go into a room and you'd feel cold and there'd be the prickles on the back of your neck. If you're empathic, you might feel the energy that they had before they passed, the fear, the pain, the sadness. If someone's lost in the fourth dimension and they are trying to contact people here in the third, it can actually be a case of despair. So they can get to that point where they're moving things around the house, where they're smashing glasses, where they're moving paintings. The ones that like to muck around with you, they're the ones that like do the folding up of the blankets and bring the cushions off the lounge and stuff like that.
Open and shut doors, that sort of thing.
Yes,
Turn
exactly.
lights on and off.
Yeah. I went to one once where all the cupboard doors in the kitchen were open every morning they got up.
Oh, my gosh.
They must have been looking for something.
That would just be so frustrating. Other than kind of spooky, but then you're like, come on, seriously.
Well, they were blaming their 8-year-old boy.
Oh, the poor kid.
He was like, they were saying you're getting out of bed at night and doing this. He's like, I'm not. So yeah, but there's lots of different things they will do to get your attention. So it can be also laying on top of you at night, that feeling of not being able to breathe, having something heavy on your chest, that terrible feeling when you're asleep and you can't speak. I don't know if you've ever had that kind of nightmare where you're trying to scream out for help and nothing's coming out. Those are all things that ghosts and these shapeshifters can actually do.
Okay. So if we move to then that second dimension, the shapeshifters, so they are sort of more dark, would you say? Or how does this differ?
They're different. They don't kind of live by our rules, if you like. So neither do fairies. Fairies are very annoying. I've told you the story about my friend in Adelaide who built a beautiful fairy castle for her kids in the garden out of crystals, and it was gorgeous. And then her hubby decided to do a bit of a reno and he took the fairy castle down, and the next morning all her eyelashes were chopped off.
That is so funny, but
It was
also
hilarious.
awful.
It's terrible. But, all these stories, people think I'm crazy, but this really happened. These stories are true. They really happen. So we get these sorts of stories all the time from people and not understanding what's going on. And, the stories of these elementals have come from somewhere. And our earth is full of spirits. And just because we don't understand it doesn't mean it's not there. I often say to people, years ago, like back in the 1700s, they didn't know what a germ was. They didn't know why people were dying. But as soon as we had the technology to be able to see them, then of course, they're real because we can see them with our own eyes. Well, I can see them with my own eyes, so I know they're real, and I know a lot of other people can see them as well. So just keep an open mind about all this. But yes, you can have definitely an elemental, we kind of call it invasion of the house, where they'll come in and they'll start to cause a bit of havoc. They do love children, the fairies, in a good way. In a good way, they love the kids, laughter and joy and innocence and all that. They're very much about that. So they're attracted to little ones.
That's really sweet. I guess if we talk about maybe some of the more scary occurrences that can happen in people's houses, I mean, I've seen like a glob at one point. I know people have said to me before they've heard animals or things where they, maybe a dog or a snake growling in their ear and they've never had that experience, or maybe they've been having that experience all the time. These can be other sort of things that you call demonics.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, the demonic energies are real as well, and they are not things to be played with. These things, there's varying different types of the demonic energies, going from, dare I say, the lighter ones to the very, very dark. But they are all inherently evil and they all need to be taken care of. And in fact, they can cause people to be very depressed and sometimes even suicidal. And that's the scary part about them.
And these are not elemental, so these are not from the second dimension.
They're from the first. Yeah. So these are, it's really hard to explain in 5 minutes because it's a very complicated subject, this one.
We might need to have a whole demon workshop one. We can get James on as our guest.
We have to, yeah, I reckon. He's the expert here. But there is definitely a need for balance in this particular dimension. So we have light and we have dark. And the reason that we do that is so that we create a karmic scenario where we get to choose. We get to choose either the light path or choose the darker path. And the more that you choose the light path, the lighter and lighter you become, and so therefore you move up. The people that keep choosing the dark path, well, they pretty much stay where they are and they keep going around in this law of cause and effect, or what you do to others comes back to you, basically. So it's almost creating that. So we do need them in some ways. But then if they stick to where they are, we're fine. But sometimes they creep out into our dimension and then they start to feed off of your fear.
So is that how somebody would know that they maybe have something a little bit darker in their house? So compared to maybe at the elementals who are playing tricks on you.
Absolutely.
Or having, a ghost who's sort of moving things. What would something from this lower dimension, how would that show up? So you said really feeling like potentially bad things being said to you.
Yes, so they can whisper very negative things in your ear. Usually it's spiteful, swearing type. You're an effing bee or whatever. I've had that.
Right.
The energy of it is, how can I put this? It's like mud. It's thick. It's disgusting. It makes you feel like you want to wash straight away. It's depressing, heavy. Sometimes you feel hatred from these things. Anything that you can possibly imagine in the negative, that's what they represent.
In those lower vibrations. What about if somebody is having these experiences? Obviously, there are some mental health conditions that do cause this as well.
Yes.
So things like schizophrenia or even sometimes some of the personality disorders. So it is really important to be aware that, maybe there is something else going on. But if the people that are listening and they maybe have had these experiences and they know that if there's no mental health conditions there, what are some things they can do? They can obviously call in somebody like yourself or James, somebody like a Ghostbuster to come in and help clear their homes.
Look, absolutely. We're training more and more people. And that is another thing too, is that you can be trained. You do have to go through the process of the Reiki first of all, because, the way that I teach is about getting your vibration up as high as it possibly can be so that you're not vulnerable to these things. And then we can send you in safely so you know what you're doing and you know how to get rid of them. We will send them what we call over or under, depending on who they are. If they're just one that's sort of escaped from the dimension and wandering around looking for a feed, we usually send them back and lock them in. But if they're quite evil and they're causing a lot of havoc, we'll actually send them to the light, which completely dissolves them. So bye-bye, demon.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. But, this is always done under the watchful eye of the people that are guiding us. So we always ask permission before we go vanquishing anything.
Yes, and I think maybe if we move back to a lighter topic about the fairies and the gnomes, even though they can be quite annoying at times when they hide stuff and you're like, please just give it back. I want my crystal back. How do you get them to sort of move from inside of your house maybe to outside of your house? Because I guess they live here.
They love offerings. They absolutely love offerings. So hilarious story. When I was doing some work in Sydney, I had a gentleman come to one of my live shows, and he was a builder and he was a very large man and very sceptical. And he was dragged along by his wife because he'd been having terrible problems building this enormous house in one of the very good suburbs in Sydney. And he'd been trying to build this house for 7 years. And there was one thing after another going wrong with this property. Anyway,
he wasn't giving up.
He was not giving up. He was going to build this damn house if it killed him, and I think it probably did in the end. But the whole thing was around. I went to the property, and I had a look first of all at the garden, and straight away I saw this massive tree trunk that had been cut down. And I said, "Oh, what did you do?" And it wasn't in the way of the house, by the way. It was just in the front yard, but he had other plans for the front yard. And he said, it was just a big jacaranda tree. I got rid of it.
Uh-oh.
And I said, okay, so what's happened here is that you've upset the elementals in this area. You've chopped down their home. You've really upset them.
What was his reaction?
At this point in time, he was willing to hear anything.
Okay.
Because he'd been to the show. He was convinced now that I was legit because I'd bought through his father and other people and, So he's listening to me like, this enormous man. And I'll give you the visuals because the visual is hilarious. So he's in his work gear, which is, shorts, typical builder. He's short shorts and he's got his knobbly builder boots on and he's got this high-vis orange vest on, right? And he's a huge man and he's like listening to me intently. And I said, you need to make a peace offering to the fairies. He goes, how do I do that? And I said, well, we need to get some crystals. We're going to put them out in the garden. And you're going to say sorry for what you did, and you're going to offer them a place to relocate. So we bought this beautiful big crystal, and we bought a few other, amethyst sort of crystals and things like that, and we placed them around in the garden. So it was more or less a fairy garden for them. And he's on his hands and knees in the garden with these crystals, and he's offering the crystals saying, can you please stop interfering in my building now? And I just looked at it and thought, oh, my God, this is hilarious. And none of his friends, we should have taken a photo because
I was just thinking that would have been so funny.
It was funny. But anyway, it was all fine, and he was able to get on with his building, and it all went smoothly after that. So, sometimes you just need to appease them and then they're fine.
That's great. That's awesome. And what about then for ghosts? If people have experienced that they're getting ghosts in their home, how can they help to clear ghosts?
So as we spoke about before, people out of body, they just need your help. So if you are feeling them, you just say to them, we understand you're here for a reason. I want to help you go into the spirit world where you will be healed and you can see your loved ones. So say that out loud. Ghosts cannot hear your thoughts.
Oh, really?
They can't hear your thoughts. Only your own spirit guides and people in spirit world can hear your thoughts. You have to speak out loud to ghosts.
Incredible.
Okay? So
that is a
obviously
very good tip.
Pick your time.
Yeah.
that you're doing this.
You're in a crowd full of people.
And then once you do that, we ask, if you're not Reiki trained, so we would ask Archangel Michael to come in and to open the door to the spirit world and to allow them to go through. And that's something that you can do yourself. Now, if it's just purely a ghost that's tagged along and wanting your help, they'll go through easily and that will be done. Always remember to close the door afterwards, by the way.
Good tip. Another good tip. These are important. I'm writing these down.
Yeah. And then you have to do something about the ectoplasm. Now, ectoplasm is energy that's left behind because ghosts will have energy coming off of them. Now, back in the day, and this is hilarious, I actually have some photographs of old photos of the 1930s. In New York City, they used to hold seances. It was a regular thing they did. It was just at the time, it was an interest, I suppose. Didn't have TV, had to do something. And they were all sitting around and they had what they said was ectoplasm. It doesn't work that way. I think it was baking soda and toothpaste that they'd mixed together and they sort of strung it between the people sitting at the tables. Hilarious. But ectoplasm looks a bit like that, but it's actually in the spiritual form of it. So it looks like white fuzzy or grey fuzzy kind of mess. Yeah. Okay. And so that's all in your house after a ghost has been in there.
Like smoke.
Yeah, they kind of leave it behind.
Okay. I believe I've seen that.
So we clear that out afterwards. You can use smudge sticks, you can use white candles, incense, bells, anything that is a higher vibration that will actually get rid of that. It's good to plant rosemary in the front of your garden, in the back of your garden, because the vibration of rosemary is very highly protective and it keeps out spirits. Also bells or chimes, so wind chimes at the front and back door, keep them out as well. Doesn't help them, sends them off to someone else that doesn't have a wind chime, but it will certainly keep them out of your area.
Before you've learnt to maybe do some of these other techniques.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe I need some wind chimes, I need some rosemary.
Yeah, all those things are really helpful. And look, the smudge sticks are good. You can get those from pretty much any spiritual outlet. And then the incense. I use spiritual guide incense because it is beautiful. It smells really nice, much better than smudge sticks. And it has all of the properties in there to help to clear this energy in the house.
These are fantastic. Thank you so much for today. This was so insightful. I got so much out of it.
No worries.
Welcome to the Divine Style Podcast with Gerlinda, Stella, personal stylist and self-love coach, and Alison, Maiden, psychic medium, spiritual healer and metaphysical teacher. Each episode you'll experience spiritual lessons to cultivate self-love and self-expression so you can become the best version of you.